I banned my anti-vax mom from eating my baby until she gets the flu shot. Now she's playing the victim and says I'm tearing the family apart. I, 25F, am currently pregnant with my first child, a baby girl due at the beginning of next year. On paper, it should be one of the happiest times of my life. I've been preparing for her arrival, getting the nursery ready, and thinking about what kind of parent I want to be. But instead of just feeling excited, I'm carrying around this heavy knot of stress and dread. And that stress has everything to do with my parents, my mom, 50F, and dad, 52M. I grew up in a very religious household. Faith was a big part of everything we did. And while I don't hold anything against religion itself, the way my parents interpreted it came with some pretty extreme ideas. The biggest one? They don't believe in modern medicine. I don't mean just being hesitant or skeptical about certain treatments. I mean they're completely anti-doctor, anti-vaccine, anti-medication. My mom is the kind of person who thinks essential oils can cure just about anything. And my dad believes that supplements and prayer are enough to ward off even the most serious conditions. Somehow, I got lucky as a kid and still received most of the standard childhood vaccines. I think it was because the school system required certain ones, and my parents didn't want to risk me being excluded. But I vividly remember the day my mom refused to let me get the HPV shot. I was maybe 12 or 13, sitting in the doctor's office, ready to roll on my sleeve. My mom pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't let them trick you. That vaccine paralyzes girls. It could kill you." I'll never forget the look on my pediatrician's face in that moment. Like she wanted to argue, but knew it wouldn't matter. That was the first time it really hit me. Something about my parents' beliefs wasn't just unusual, it was dangerous. Growing up, my mom rarely took me or my sibling to the doctor unless it was absolutely mandatory, like school physicals. Even when we had fevers that wouldn't break, injuries that looked serious, or illnesses that dragged on, her solution was always the same: oils, supplements, herbal teas, and lots of "you'll be fine." As a kid, I didn't know better, but as I got older, I started realizing just how risky it all was. Now here I am, an adult, working in the medical field, about to bring a newborn into the world. And the thought of my parents and their anti-medicine mindset being around my daughter fills me with dread. Because unlike me, she won't be able to advocate for herself. She won't be able to roll her eyes and ignore their remedies. She'll be vulnerable in ways I see every single day at work. And the truth is, I've already made up my mind. If my parents can't respect basic boundaries around modern medicine, like something as simple as a flu shot, then they won't be allowed near my baby. Looking back on my childhood, I can see just how deeply my parents' beliefs shaped the way I grew up. At the time, I didn't always recognize it for what it was. As a kid, you just assume your parents know best. But now, as an adult, and especially as someone working in healthcare, I can see how dangerous their mindset really was. Like I mentioned before, I got most of my childhood vaccines, but that was only because schools required them. Anytime a vaccine wasn't mandatory, my mom refused. She always framed it as protecting me. She'd say things like, "They just want to inject poison into your body," or "If you live clean, you won't need medicine." I remember being a teenager and wanting the HPV shot because my doctor explained how it could prevent cervical cancer. But my mom flat out refused, insisting it would paralyze me. That moment stuck with me, because even at 13, something in my gut told me she was wrong. Doctor visits were rare in our house. Unless a school form required a physical, we didn't go. If I had strep throat symptoms, my mom would brew tea with honey and insist I gargle with salt water. If I sprained my ankle, she'd rub essential oils on it and tell me to walk it off. I remember once being really sick with a high fever and begging to see a doctor, but she shook her head and said, "It's just your body detoxing." My dad wasn't any better. In fact, he was worse in some ways. He's a stubborn man, and I'm convinced he has some serious health issue now. Possibly even cancer, but he won't see a doctor to get checked. He insists that God made natural remedies for everything, and that if he prays and takes his supplements, he'll be fine. Watching him cough endlessly and lose weight, only to wave off any suggestion of seeing a doctor, has been infuriating and heartbreaking. It wasn't just about medical neglect, either. Their beliefs created an environment of fear. I grew up believing that medicine was dangerous, that doctors were out to harm people, and that if I ever needed serious medical care, it would somehow mean I had failed to keep myself healthy. It's taken years to unlearn that mindset. My sibling and I talk about it sometimes, and we both realize how lucky we were that nothing catastrophic happened during our childhood. We got through with a lot of colds, flus, and minor injuries, but it could have been so much worse. If one of us had developed something serious, a ruptured appendix, a severe infection, anything that needed immediate care, I don't even know if my parents would have taken us to the hospital in time. And the thing is, they haven't changed. They're still just as anti-medicine as ever. They share conspiracy posts on Facebook about how vaccines are toxins and Tylenol is a scam by Big Pharma. They stockpile vitamins and oils like it's the cure for everything. Even now, As adults, when my sibling or I mention going to the doctor, my mom makes a face and says, "You don't need all that. Just take your supplements." Growing up in that environment is one of the reasons I chose a career in healthcare. I wanted to be the exact opposite of what I had experienced. I wanted to know the facts, see the science, and be able to care for people in ways my parents never could. And the more I've learned, the more it terrifies me to imagine them around my baby. Because I know their mindset hasn't changed. And I know they'd rather risk my child's health than get a simple shot. One of the biggest reasons I feel so strongly about this issue is because of the work I do now. I'm in a medical field, working closely with critical care pediatrics. Every single shift is a reminder of how fragile newborns and infants can be, and how quickly something minor to an adult can spiral into something catastrophic for a baby. I've watched infants come into the unit struggling to breathe because of a simple cold passed along by a family member who thought they were fine. I've seen tiny babies put on ventilators because RSV ravaged their lungs. I've held the hands of devastated parents who never imagined that the flu could be fatal to a child who was only a few weeks old. And I've seen children permanently disabled because of preventable illnesses. These aren't just numbers or statistics to me. They're real, tiny human beings who were loved just as much as I already love my daughter. And the hardest part is knowing that many of those cases could have been prevented if the adults around them had taken basic precautions, like washing hands properly, wearing a mask when sick, or getting a flu shot. That's why when I think about my parents and their attitude toward medicine, I don't just feel annoyed. I feel terrified because I know what their choices could mean for my baby. I can picture exactly what could happen because I've seen it with my own eyes. And it makes me angry too. Angry that my parents think their supplements and Facebook medicine somehow trump actual medical science. Angry that they dismiss decades of research with a wave of the hand because some influencer told them garlic pills are better than vaccines. Angry that they refuse to see what I see every single day. The real-life consequences of their ignorance. It's not even about me anymore. It's about my daughter. I can handle my parents' weird beliefs when it only affects them. If my dad wants to ignore his own health and risk dying of something preventable, that's his choice. If my mom wants to treat every sniffle with lavender oil instead of actual medication, that's on her. But when it comes to my child, that's where I draw the line. Because my daughter won't have a choice. She won't have a strong immune system. She won't be able to fight off something that to us might look like just a little cold. She'll depend on me to make sure the people around her are safe, that the environment she's in is as protected as possible. And I refuse to gamble with her life just to keep my parents comfortable. I think sometimes people who don't work in healthcare can underestimate just how serious these illnesses can be. They think, I've had the flu before, it wasn't that bad, or RSV is just like a cold, right? But when you've seen babies with tubes down their throats, their little chests heaving just to pull in air, you don't make light of those things. You understand that prevention matters. So when I say I want my parents vaccinated before they meet my daughter, it's not me being dramatic. It's not me trying to punish them or control them. It's me being a mom. It's me protecting the one person who can't protect herself. And if my parents can't understand that, even after everything I've seen, everything I've explained, then maybe they don't deserve to be around her at all. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew I couldn't avoid it forever. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to have a conversation with my mom. I wanted to be upfront, clear, and respectful. I told myself maybe, just maybe, if I approached it calmly, she would listen. We were sitting at her kitchen table when I brought it up. I said, "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important before the baby comes. I'd like you to get your flu shot before you meet her." Immediately, her face hardened. She didn't even pause to think. "Absolutely not," she said. "I don't put that garbage in my body. I've never needed it, and I'm not about to start now." I try to stay calm. "This isn't about you, Mom. It's about the baby. Newborns are so vulnerable, and the flu could be deadly for them. The vaccine would help protect her." She waved her hand dismissively. "I don't get sick. I take my supplements, I eat clean, I take care of myself. I've never had the flu. Why would I suddenly get it now?" I could feel my frustration bubbling, but I pushed through. It's not just about how you feel. You could be contagious and not even know it. You might feel fine and still spread something to her. The shot isn't just about protecting you. It's about protecting her. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and gave me that look I've seen a million times. The look that says I know better than you. "The flu shot will just make me sick. It weakens your immune system. You've been brainwashed by Big Pharma. Your baby will be fine. Babies are stronger than you think." That last line nearly broke me. I wanted to scream. I've spent the past few years literally watching babies not be fine. I've watched them hooked up to machines, gasping for air. I've watched them die in their parents' arms because of preventable illnesses. And here was my mother, my own mother, looking me in the eye and acting like I was overreacting. I laid out the facts. I told her about the cases I've seen, the science, the reality. But it didn't matter. Every word I said was met with some Facebook article she'd read, some story about someone who got the flu shot and dropped dead, some rant about how natural remedies were safer. At one point, I realized I wasn't even talking to my mom anymore. I was talking to a wall built out of conspiracy theories and stubbornness. No matter what I said, she wasn't going to budge. Finally, I put my hands on the table and said, very clearly, then you won't be allowed to meet my baby until she's older. I'm not going to risk her life because of your beliefs. Her jaw dropped. She looked at me like I had just slapped her. Are you serious? You're going to keep my grandchild from me? Because I won't put poison in my body? Yes, I said. If that's what it takes to protect her, then yes. She scoffed, her voice rising. You're cruel. You're brainwashed. You think you're smarter than everyone else just because you work in a hospital. That baby is going to grow up and hate you for keeping her family away. The words stung, but I stood my ground. Because in that moment, it became crystal clear nothing I said was ever going to change her mind. And if she wasn't willing to change for me, she sure as hell wasn't going to change for my daughter. After that conversation, there was no going back. I had drawn my line in the sand, and my mom had made it clear she wasn't going to cross it. The silence that followed was heavy. Both of us sitting there, staring at each other, neither willing to bend. She was the first to speak. Her voice was sharp cold. So that's it? I'm not allowed to meet my granddaughter? You're going to punish me for standing by my beliefs. I took a deep breath. I'm not punishing you, Mom. I'm protecting my baby. This isn't about you, it's about her. I see what happens to newborns every single day. I won't let that be my daughter. She scoffed and shook her head. You're brainwashed. You think you're better than your father and me because you have a hospital job. You think you know everything. Her words hit hard. There's always been this underlying tension in our relationship. The sense that my choice to pursue medicine was a rejection of everything my parents stood for. And in a way it was, but I wasn't doing it to spite them. I was doing it because I had seen the truth they refused to acknowledge. That night, after I left her house, the guilt started to creep in. I lay awake wondering if I'd been too harsh, if maybe I could have handled it differently. The thought of my mom crying, of her telling people I was keeping her grandchild away, it made my chest ache. I grew up being taught that family is everything. And now here I was actively putting distance between us. But then I'd remember the faces of the babies I've seen in the ICU. I'd remember their tiny chests struggling to rise and fall, their parents weeping at the bedside, whispering prayers that went unanswered. I'd remember the machines beeping, the sterile smell of the room, and the hollow look in the eyes of parents who had just lost everything. And every time those images came back to me, my guilt was replaced by resolve. Because no amount of family guilt tripping was going to change the fact that my daughter's life mattered more. She didn't choose to be born into a family where some members believe Facebook means more than medical research. She didn't choose to be vulnerable, but she is vulnerable, and that means it's my job, my responsibility, to protect her. In some ways, setting this boundary made me feel like I was breaking a cycle. My whole childhood was filled with moments where my parents' choices put my health at risk. Choices I had no say in. Now, as a mother myself, I finally have the power to stop that cycle. To say, not this time. Not with my child. Still, it hasn't been easy. My mom has been telling other family members that I'm cruel and heartless, and some of them have started to side with her. I've gotten texts asking me to reconsider, to just compromise, to let her meet the baby anyway. They say things like, she raised you, didn't she? You turned out fine. But the truth is, I didn't turn out fine because of their choices. I turned out fine in spite of them. And I won't let my baby's health be left up to chance the way mine was. So yes, it hurts. It hurts to know that my daughter may not know her grandparents, at least not right away. It hurts to know my mom sees me as the enemy. But when I put my hand on my belly and feel my daughter kick, I know I'm making the right choice. Because being a mom means protecting her, even if it means standing alone. Now that I've had some time to sit with it, I know I made the right decision for my daughter. But that doesn't mean it's been easy. My mom is painting me as cruel, selfish, and brainwashed, and some of my extended family is starting to echo her words. They see me as the bad guy for keeping grandparents away from their first grandchild. But here's the truth. I've lived with the consequences of their beliefs my whole life. I know what it's like to be a child who isn't taken to the doctor, to be told that oils and supplements are enough when you're sick. I know what it's like to be denied a vaccine that could literally save my life one day. And now, working in the medical field, I see the worst-case scenarios every day. Babies who will never go home. Parents who will never get to watch their children grow up. So when I think about my daughter, the choice feels clear. I can't gamble with her life to make other people happy. I can't set aside science and safety just to spare my mom's feelings. If that means I have to be the bad guy, then so be it. Still, a part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid. If I'm letting fear dictate my choices. If keeping my parents away will one day come back to haunt me. So I have to ask, AITA for refusing to let my parents meet my newborn unless they get vaccinated, even if it means cutting them out of her life for now.